So we've learned about making real-time updates to the DOM, but what if we want to make changes to our style sheets, or CSS? Well, that's where the right side of the Elements panel comes in. The Styles view does a lot for us. First off, it displays the computed CSS styles for any given element. See, on any element, you might have multiple styles coming from multiple files, multiple style sheets, and they get computed into the listing that you see here. The Styles view also allows you to enable and disable style properties, add new ones, edit rules on pseudo-classes like your active and hover state, and finally it provides a breadcrumb trail so you can figure out what file a style came from. Here you can see I have the Add Event button selected on the left side, and on the right side I can see all the CSS rules being applied to this button, starting with the most specific rules first. So if I had any inline styles, they would be displayed here. And then there's a label that's showing us the first set of CSS rules coming from the new class, since our link belongs to that class. You see all those checkboxes next to those styles? Well, they do what you would expect them to do. If you unclick a style, it stops getting applied to that element. This is really useful in debugging. If you're wondering what style is messing up your page, you can just start disabling the styles until you figure out who the culprit is. We can also change these style values by double-clicking on them. So now our button text is aligned to the right, as you can see above. Or we can remove a property entirely by just deleting the value, and now our text is over on the left side of the button. If you want to add a style to an element, just make sure it's selected and just hit the plus button here. We then will want to specify the CSS selector, which, as you can see, is defaulted to the .new class, since that's what we have selected. We can then start typing a new style. And look at that, it actually allows us to autocomplete each of the properties and values using the Tab key. Now what if we wanted to change our Add Event button so that it changes to a different color when our mouse hovers over it? It might be kind of hard to hover the mouse over it while we're trying to use DevTools, but there's a solution for this. If we click on this icon on the right side here, we can force the element we have selected, the button in this case, to be in the active, hover, focused, or visited state. In this case, we want the hover state, so we'll check that off. And as you can see here, the button text up above is underlined. We can also see the style for the hover state, which makes it underlined, right here in the bottom right of the screen. If you want to change the background color on hover, we can just add the style here and immediately see that it turns black in the web page. When we're ready to actually watch it work, we can uncheck the hover state and play with it. Yep, looks like it works. Black is obviously not a great color for this hover state, so let's change it. But this time, instead of typing a value, let's click on that color swatch right there. When we see that, we can get this nice color picker, so we can choose our color this way and come up with a better match. Lastly, our style view allows us to know where a particular style came from. You might have noticed that in our CSS panel, each CSS rule has a file name listed on the right side with a line number. When you click on this file, that opens up the CSS source in something that resembles an editor. This is actually the source view panel, which we'll be going over in the next chapter, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, it's time for you to play with the style view in the challenges.